I'm going to explain something to you about the Temu twins. And I know there's a lot of videos on this. There are a couple of twins that are going around mocking the Outlaw 1% clubs and stuff like that, talking a lot of stuff to them and everything. What I'm going to explain to you, though, is what's behind it. I know some people saying it's feds, it's cops, but ultimately, what is behind it? Now, this is a South Park episode. It's called, I'm not going to play it, but South Park Bikers. You can look it up, right? And, who makes this? Who makes this type of stuff? Even when you look at the Hollywood movies, look how they're, there were some other recent movies. I think some guys got together that were like, maybe it wasn't recent, it was maybe 10 years ago. I forgot what the hell it was called. It was stupid. I didn't like it. But there were average Joes that got together to try to ride across country, and they freaking, made the real bikers look bad, And it was Hollywood. So this, here they're like, blah, 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 blah. This is another thing. Who is making this? This is what I'm going to get to why, cops and feds are not the key top people. They're being directed by somebody. And when you're looking at what Hollywood does, initially, they pushed the biker movies to break down society. Even that stuff with, way back, a lot of that stuff was staged, At Hollister, it was all staged. It was made into a big thing by the media. But it was initially to break down law, real law. And, the outlaw bikers are not really about breaking down real law. They just don't want to live by unjust BS garbage that's being pushed by society. They have their own code and laws. They're not lawless. They're not anarchy. So this is, you can see a lot of these videos out on here. I just kind of looked it up, the Temu twins, Sturgis. And this was put out by Chatting with Stacks. It's kind of like his little, it's like a 1 minute thing. But you could see, there they are. They're walking out. This is at Sturgis. They drove a truck there or something. So here's the Hells Angels. Now, they're taking the bait. The thing is, it's pretty bad that you can't take the bait. But you'd have to be... Well, I'm not an outlaw biker. I can't represent them. But my style would be acting super friendly to them. Hugging them and shit like that. Buying them a beer. And... just getting in because I'd want to know exactly what they're about. Now, one thing in this video, it proves something. You see they ran over to the police, and you can say, well, they're in with the police, they're in with the feds. But you don't see the whole story. Who is actually behind all this? And I could say it's the whole game. It's the whole game. If you really want to freaking find out who's behind it, some of the symbols that some of these guys used to wear, like I know the HA used to wear like certain symbols from World War II, and they stopped wearing them because their brothers were in Germany. Well, if you're wearing those things, you find out, the reaction. And I know you always got the people, that have been brainwashed about things that those symbols mean, but they don't mean. Well, you'll find out what is really going on. It's like, it's like looking at the feminist. Let's give you an example. Oh, the feminist, the woman this, the woman that. Sometimes I look at some of those videos. I know what's behind it. The CIA, but who's behind the CIA? Who basically pushed the OSS? And the OSS made sure that Eastern Europe fell to communism. Who created communism? Go all the way back. Then you'll find out what's going on. Who pushed the woke strategy in Harley? Ultimately, it was BlackRock. Who owns BlackRock? Get it? So, anyway, I don't want to comment much on this because the platform is owned by them, you know what I mean? And, it just becomes obvious. Don't look at the thing that's thrown right in front of you. Look at what's behind it. And then it becomes very apparent what the hell's going on. So, these guys ain't doing this just for some clicks and clickbait and stuff like that. That's a load of crap all the way. And this was, again, I guess this was Chatting with Stacks or whatever. He's got the one in the black hand. He's kind of like, I don't know. I think he rides or something. He's not really like a biker or something, but he's, I could say I'm a biker I can say that. I'm not in a club. Well, I'm in something that's kind of like a club. I guess it could. We don't call it a club because it'll might offend the guys that are in clubs. But it's been around a while, more than 25 years. But anyway, the thing is, you're looking at what Hollywood is doing, and actually, originally they kind of pushed. They wanted to go against the mainstream because if you go early on, I mean, I don't remember the '60s well because I was like really young then. I mean, I was like, 13 years old in 1968. So what would I really know about the '60s that much except what I saw on television? But I know about in the '70s. The '70s, the bikers were not, mainstream. They were not welcome. They were like people always, that stuff was like, get the hell out of here, tattoos, all that stuff. That was all, don't do that. It was like they didn't want you doing it. So they were pushing this on the movies. But then once it started getting to a point, now they're pushing it on the movies to kind of mock it in a way. If you notice that, sort of like this South Park episode, sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But, you would never see that before. Before it was always to like push the edge and they made them look as badass as possible. Now they're not always doing that. They're kind of mocking them because that's the male testosterone dominated thing. They want to knock that down. And I could say this with these guys. They are classic entice, instigate, and entrap. This is what burns me up about LE. It's not the fact that there's laws, and you got to have laws for a functioning society. It's the instigate and entice and entrap stuff that really bothers me because a lot of people today wouldn't get in trouble unless they were enticed. And the thing is, you got to watch when, even if somebody says something, back in the day, there wasn't everything being recorded like 50,000 times over. A lot of people said a lot of things, and they, for 30 seconds, they felt like doing a crime, but then they didn't, because they thought about it, they cooled down and the situation was different. Now it's like, every thought and everything you say is like your permanent record. That's another thing that's screwed up about today, and this is why law enforcement is absolutely way overreached to the max. And, but these guys look like entrappers. But like I said, look behind it. Who's behind these guys? You think who's behind LE doing all this stuff? Who's behind LE doing this? Who's behind the feds doing all this stuff? Yeah, I know some of the biker groups do things bad. They do some things here and there bad. But you know what? I could tell you politicians do way, way worse. In our House of Representatives and U.S. Senate, we got way, way, way bigger criminals than we have in the worst, quote-unquote, outlaw biker clubs members in all of history. We got people that are actively in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate and other politicians high up in office at the state level. See, this here, when they're doing this I remember this episode, and I said, who put this out? This isn't really, I didn't really watch all of it. It's just like, ha, 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 but I could tell you one thing. I realized with a motorcycle, they could say it's about the freedom, but, your life is in danger every time you take that bike out. I don't care if you're just taking it easy, you're only going a few miles. Your life is in danger every freaking time you take that out. You don't want to be like paranoid or nothing like that, but that's just the way things are. And it's sort of like if you ride, I think you're a step above pretty much everybody else that doesn't. It's not so much that you're this badass, but you're not afraid to be out there. You're not afraid to take some kind of calculated risk. In other words, people that live in a shell, they're the ones that go along to get along with the majority. And, that's how you get things going, because sometimes the media makes it appear that a majority is thinking a certain way, and in fact they don't, right? So what happens is everybody goes along to get along because they want to be like the majority, right? Well, the thing is, with bikers, you're not going to find that as much. And that's one thing that's makes them a threat to total control. They're people that cannot be easily controlled like the rest of people. And this is where the true spirit of the outlaw comes from. It means you're outside what's being mandated by tyrants. Because don't tell me that these elections are all fair and square. It's not a matter of who you know and who you blow and all that kind of garbage. It is that way. It is that way. Go even try to get yourself elected in a local election. Go try that. See what happens. Good luck with that. And, it's like you're talking about the people that are in Congress and are higher up in the state government. Forget about it. And they make the laws. Then the media goes out and, who owns that? They basically influence the lawmakers. So even this garbage that's going on here, I say this is all an entrapment. 100% entrapment for the 1% established clubs, or any biker clubs, I guess. 100%. And it's to make them look weak and bad in the eyes of the public by these guys. And these guys are never going to stop talking crap. Personally, my method would be to be, and I'm not doing this saying that any of these guys in those clubs, but this is my style. I would go up there and talk nice to them and say, how you doing? Come ride with us. And, and when I tell you, when you see these guys, any of these guys, it could be not even like the Hells Angels, Mongols, the Outlaws, the Pagans, the Banditos, or Sons of Silence. Those guys ride hard. And, if you're going to keep up with them, have fun. Have fun. Because I know a friend of mine, he joined a support group for the Outlaws in Florida. It was a support group. And one of the guys I know is another friend of mine. He tried to ride with him. And he's been riding for a long, long, long time. He says, man, these guys ride really tight. He says, some of the guys that were riding in the back, that were hang-arounds, that crashed and stuff like that. I said, man, I don't want to do that. I personally don't want to do that. I mean, I ride staggered. I don't ride, side by side and real super tight. But, these guys, like these outlaw clubs, they ride like, you would think they're like professional performers, They ride really tight, wheel to wheel, handlebar to handlebar, and all that kind of crap. I would invite these clowns that are talking all this shit to go ride. Because you know what? What is the motorcycle club about? It's about riding the motorcycle. It's about the motorcycle. It's about the activities you do on the motorcycle. It's not all the stuff Hollywood is pushing or the media is pushing. You really don't even know what the motorcycle club is about because it's mainly about riding the motorcycle. So my personal strategy would be to go up to these clowns and politely invite them to go on a run. And you can record them and see what they say. And if they say, oh no, I'm not going to do that, well then you can make a video on how big a chicken crap they are. Right? So that's the, we got to listen to old Lucifer over here. Not that I'm an outlaw biker, but I know the game. Because I know the game of the people that are playing this game, and I can usually play it better than them. But unfortunately, I'm on their platform. And when I'm on their platform, I can't freaking tell you everything. But let me say that this whole thing is being, the whole public has been screwed with since day one, And my caveat, though, I'll tell you my thing, my angle with the motorcycle. I got into motorcycles from bicycles. And I'm not talking as a little kid. I'm talking about I would like to run, and I would do 8 miles of hills every day. And sometimes I used to do 20-mile runs on the weekend. Somebody says, why don't you get a bicycle? I said, yeah, you go further, you can carry water, and you got a better breeze. So the first month I had my bicycle, I put 150 miles on it in one day on a mountain bike. Pretty hairy, right? And I was doing I had an odometer on it, and even with all the running I was doing, I did 3,000 miles a year on a bicycle for several years. that's when I said, what the hell, man? Motorcycle. I went to the motorcycle. It's not saying I graduated. I just like the two wheels. I never got into all the Harley Davidson biker culture stuff at all. I just like the two wheels. You know, the experience of being on two wheels. And there is definitely a lot of commonality between a bicycle and a motorcycle in your freedom loving experience. Even though in the public psyche, they think like the bicycle is just some little tame Mary Poppins thing, and the motorcycle is something else completely, and the Harley's being like outlaw. But in a lot of ways, there's a real lot of commonality. So, I mean, the motorcycle clubs are about motorcycles and motorcycling. So I would politely invite these dipshits on the freaking runs, and, you know, I would think they wouldn't be able to keep up for shit, and, you know, you would embarrass them. Without doing nothing special, just going on your average. I mean, these Hells Angels, man, these guys ride tight. I mean, they all do. I know, I'm in Florida, so when I was in California, Hells Angels were the thing, you know, and that was back in the early '90s. And so in Florida, you know, it's the Outlaws, and Florida's got a lot. I mean, it's got Mongols, Pagans, Sons of Silence. There's no Bandidos. Bandidos is Texas. I don't think there's Bandidos in Florida. Maybe there is. But those guys ride tight. Now, I know even like the Leathernecks MC, those guys ride tight. They ride real tight too. You know? These guys that are the Temu Outlaw twin, whatever the hell they are, I would just invite them on, you know, go ride with us. Because, you know, them talking shit, let's see what your riding skills are up to. And without doing anything special, just go on a regular run. And if they punk out or they just fall way back like fucking half a mile or some shit, you can make videos about that, and that'll deflate this whole situation.